Can work on the ring of fire. So I already made my level 04 with the same name. And I'm including this simple ring mesh with the course. You can download it, import it into Unreal Engine and drop it in. I will reset the location as usual. We can hide the floor. And let's set this up from scratch. It'll be a nice review for us. So right click Niagara system, empty system, ns underscore ring of fire. Also drop it into the scene right away, reset location, and then Control E to open it. Let's make a new minimal emitter, fire underscore particles, emitter update, spawn rate. And I'll actually do 3000 particles. We need a lot to cover the entire ring. And whenever you're doing a lot of particles, you really want it to be a GPU sim. And we need it to be a GPU sim anyway to work with the grid master emitter. Just make sure you set the bounds to fixed. Initialize sprite size uniform. And we need a static mesh location module. Make sure we grab the mesh, so Control B. With the asset selected, click on these arrows here. So now it's being born on the ring. And I will link the Niagara system to the ring. So drag it on top. And I want to make the system local. So under properties, enable local space. And so now when I move the ring, I'm moving the Niagara particles with it. And I want to make the particles move up. So particle update, search for gravity, force, fix issue, and arrow. And we want to randomize it. So random range vector, 0 on the X, 0 on the Y. And on the Z, I did between 100 and 200. So they're going up just like this. Initialize particle lifetime. Let's randomize that between 0.75 and 1.25. So now they're going up in a straight line. So as usual, we need to add a curl noise force. And I'll set the noise strength to 400. Next, we can add our set fluid source attributes. We don't want any density, so that can be 0. And we're gonna play with a bunch of these settings that we haven't touched before. But first, let's make the grid emitter. So add emitter and search for grid 3D gas master emitter, add emitter summary. And I ended up doing 3000 by 3000 by 2000. Actually, the z-axis doesn't have to be as high. So let's try 1250. And the pivot 0.35 on the z-axis with a resolution of, let's start with 300, pressure iterations 10 as usual. And it's getting a little laggy, so just to be safe, I'm gonna save everything, always a good idea. So now we can link the particles to it. So source, use emitter source, and under sphere source, we need to uncheck enable. And for the emitter binding, I'm gonna double click and search for fire underscore particles. Click away, let it update. And nothing is happening. And I did think that we missed something, but actually what's going on is we are not emitting any smoke and we don't have fire rendering enabled. And so there's nothing there. If I set density back to 1, it is in fact working, right? So let's set density back to 0 and go to render tab, and we need to say render temperature black body, and then we need to go under simulation and check temperature. You need to do those two things for fire to show up. So now when it updates, we finally have fire being emitted. So you can turn off the sprite renderer, and I will uncheck draw bounds. And right now, basically what's happening, the fire extinguishes very quickly. So we can decrease the dissipation rate for the temperature to about 0.3 instead of 1. So that's gonna make the fire last a lot longer, but still it feels like we don't have enough fire there. And for that we can use this setting called divergence, which basically means expansion or explosiveness. And that's gonna give some nice volume to the flames. So in order for this setting to actually take visible effect, we need to go to source and enable read divergence. And if you hover over it, it actually tells you this type of effect can be useful for explosions as it pushes gas away from the particles. If I set the divergence to 10, we're starting to get something that looks much better right away, because basically each little particle is now a small explosion and the fire expands a lot more than before. So already just by looking at it, it's starting to look a bit too uniform. The fire is the same all around. So I'll go to the curl noise force and randomize that first. Let's do 300 and 500. Let's also randomize the divergence. So I'll set the random range float for that. And for my original, I actually did between 12 and 20. So now it's a bit too bright, right? It's kind of blown out, so we can lower the temperature strength, but I want to randomize that as well. And the minimum, you just have to play with it and see what looks good. So maybe 0.75 for the minimum and 1 for the maximum. If that's still too bright, we can do 0.65 and 0.85 maybe. Let's look at it from the bottom, because that's really what our shot will be. And we need to look at it in our scene as well, because it's colliding with the ring. So I will turn off the directional light. Okay, so not a bad start. We are getting somewhere, and we will continue improving this in part 2.